And you kind of feel, no, it can't be. Surely, these great heroes that have done so much for the cause of God's chosen people, surely they will be accepted into God's presence at the end of this life. It has to be. It couldn't be otherwise. Men and women like these people who have done so much to forward the whole prophetic progress of Israel must surely be received into God's presence and live for him, with him forever at the last day. And yet, loved ones, the only information we have on that kind of thing is just very clear, and it implies a negative answer to that, and maybe you'd look at it. It's Romans 10. It's the last chapter that we have just finished. Romans 10 and verse 12. For there is no distinction between Jew and Greek. The same Lord is Lord of all, and bestows his riches upon all who call upon him. For everyone who calls upon the name of the Lord will be saved. But how are men to call upon him in whom they have not believed? And that's the situation. You and I may feel with our usual old emotional and illogical minds that no, surely Moshe Dayan and Golda Meir will live with our Creator forever. But God's word says clearly that those who call upon God's name will be saved. But how can people call upon him if they have not believed in him? In actual fact, both Moshe Dayan and Golda Meir probably express very, very clearly the particular function that Israel has in the world today. And that function may surprise you a little, loved ones. Maybe you just look down that chapter to the last verse and you'll see it. It's Romans 10 and verse 21. But of Israel, he says, all day long I have held out my hands to a disobedient and contrary people. And Israel is a testimony to the truth of those words. That is still Israel's primary function in these days. And however liberal you may want to be, and however enlightened and intellectual and liberated we may all appear to be, we have to face the fact that at this stage in history, and probably until Jesus comes, Israel is a testimony not so much to God's favor as to the ingratitude of humanity and its rejection of God's favor. In actual fact, Israel is not anything else but a contrary and a disobedient people in regard to the greatest gift that God has given to us men and women. That greatest gift is the one man who lived in our world and was able to destroy death and was able to live again despite being buried, and by a sinless life and his supernatural wisdom and power proved that he was the Son of the Creator of the world, the Messiah. And yet we have to face the fact honestly that Israel still rejects that man. And in regard to God's greatest and most beautiful and clearest gift, Israel is still a contrary and a disobedient people. And this is not something that's said by anti-Semites. This is something that is said by one who himself was a Jew.